Good afternoon. We will call the meeting to order of the July 30th, 2019 Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust meeting. First item is the August 13th, 2019 meeting. I will first ask for approval of the minutes from the July 30th meeting. Voting, it's approved unanimously. Next item is the consent docket. Okay, are there any individual considerations? Okay, we will vote. It's approved unanimously. There are no concurrent docket items, so we'll move into item number 5, the emergency by resolution for resolution ratifying the actions of the general manager and declaring an emergency for the purchase of goods and services related to the May 18th, 2019 damages that occurred at the North Canadian Water Treatment Plant. Chris, would you like to talk about that?
Yes, sir. Back in May, we had an electrical fire at the North Canadian Wastewater Treatment Facility during a big storm. And so I declared an emergency where we could bring a contractor in quickly and make those repairs. And this authorizes that action.
Okay.
And approves the payment for those damages.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Okay, any questions? We will vote. And it's approved unanimously. Next, item 6, items for individual consideration. Item A, approving and authorizing a Clean Water State Revolving Fund loan from the Oklahoma Water Resources Board not to exceed $2,500,000, and approving the issuance of a promissory note in the total aggregate principal amount not to exceed $2.5 million. Okay. All right. Any questions? Voting. It's approved unanimously. Item B, approval and authorization of a drinking water state revolving fund loan from the Oklahoma Water Resource Board in the total principal amount not to exceed $25 million. Okay, thank you. Any discussions? Voting, it's approved unanimously. Final item C, resolution of the Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust waiving formal competitive bidding and authorizing the general manager and the municipal councilor or respective designees to negotiate the purchase of mitigation credits for the American burrowing beetle. And it looks like we may have a presentation. Yes.
Yes, sir. Mr. Vice Chairman, Larry Hare is here to give us a short presentation on this item.
Thank you.
All right, I'm just waiting for the screen to come down so that I can share this experience with you. What you see here is an endangered species of animal called the American burying beetle. And why that is relevant to the Atoca pipeline is that, as you can see from the map on the right, about 3/4 of the pipeline is located in the American burying beetle's range. About half of it is located in its conservation priority area. So in order to construct the second Atoca pipeline, we have to get what is called an ITP, or an incidental take permit. That will allow us to go ahead with construction as well without worrying about the beetle, as long as there's mitigation credits bought within that permit. In order to get the permit, we have to come up with an HCP, which is a habitat conservation plan. And the Intercon Services is assisting us in creating that HCP, which describes the amount of impact, what kind of impacts the ABB's habitat we will have along the Atoca pipeline during construction. It's currently under review by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. For mitigation that's described within the HCP, it's not a one-to-one ratio. So if you tear up a piece of the ABB's land, you don't replace it with another piece the same size. It all depends on what impact you're going to have, whether it's permanent or temporary, and it all depends on where it's located. Is it within the conservation priority area, or is it within the range of the ABB? So assuming that we have 100% coverage along the Atoca pipeline, we've come up with a total of 378, almost 379 acres that would require mitigation when you apply the ratios seen here. The actual, as we know, not all land within the Atoca pipeline is beetle habitat, because we go through the city of Ada. You know, you're going to have driveways, yards that people mow. There's going to be some land that people farm, and so those are not suitable habitat areas. So, you know, roughly we think that maybe during the course of construction, about a 20% capture rate is more feasible, more likely, and that we think that we probably need to get maybe 76 credits for mitigation. The actual mitigation will be calculated once the permit area is all discovered by using what we call presence-absence surveys. And they go out in the field and set up these traps that, and they set it out for about 5 nights and days. And during that course of time, they see if they ever catch one of these beetles. If they catch a beetle, then the radius for the area that would be counted is a half-mile radius. So you're looking at a mile-wide circle where we would assume that the beetle would be located, and if we were to have construction activities occur in that area, then we would be taking beetles. There are a couple of mitigation approaches for the ABB. One is what we call a third-party mitigation approach, and that is approaching a mitigation bank. There are a couple here in Oklahoma that we could use in order to buy credits from them. And on the average, the cost is about $10,500 per credit. Another way is to have what we call a first-party mitigation, where the trust itself could set up land, set aside land, and form its own mitigation bank, and thereby maybe selling credits to other parties. The third-party mitigation, you know, with the mitigation banks, you know, they have to be a U.S. Fish and Wildlife approved facility. And currently, as I mentioned before, there's 2 approved mitigation banks here within the service territory. One is the Catcher Ranch Mitigation Bank with Wildwood. And Wildwood had just expanded their bank, and they have several hundred credits available for entities to purchase. The second one is called the Dirty Creek Mitigation Bank. They currently have only about 30 credits available, but they anticipate to have more credits available within the next 6 months. For first-party mitigation, if we wanted to set aside land for us, you know, we've done this. We looked at doing this earlier last year on the Atoca Reservation. And what we needed was like 500 contiguous acres of land, and the land had to be suitable for the ABB, one being the density of the ABB and one being the density of fire ants. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough beetles, but we had a plethora of fire ants. So we couldn't put anything on the Atoca Reservation. So with a mitigation bank, there are several compatible uses that you can use at the same time as you have this mitigation bank that are listed here. Cattle grazing, hiking, mountain biking, and horseback riding can be allowed if there is a proper management plan in place. This describes the mitigation bank process, which would determine the suitability of the site once you have a piece of land that you think you want to have. And that's about as far as we got with the Atoca Reservation. But moving forward, you would engage partners, stakeholders, you develop your management plan, you develop your banking instrument, get your mitigation bank approved by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and then you'll have everything available for whatever projects you may need. So, in summary, securing credits from a third party like Dirty Ranch or the other one is a lot easier to do. We can negotiate with one or both of them. Since there are only two of them and they may not have all of the credits that we need, this is why we are having a resolution in order to waive the competitive bidding practice and enter into direct negotiation with both of them at the same time. And maybe we can get a better price from one versus the other. Or you could go with the city-owned mitigation bank, which requires a whole lot more work in order to get it established and to keep it, because you have to maintain that land in perpetuity, even if the beetle were ever to be taken off of the endangered species list. And that's all I have. Any questions?
Thank you, Larry.
So it looks like we need about 76 acres.
That's what the rough calculation is right now.
And does each credit that costs about $10,000 equate to an acre?
That's a very good question. I have Mr. Derek Richard with Intercon here who could probably answer that question a lot better than I could.
Okay.
I'll try. Yeah, roughly it equates to an acre based on the ratios.
So we would need whatever 76 times $10,000 is to cover that. Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, so there you have it. I'll accept a motion. Okay. Any questions? We'll vote, and it's approved unanimously. Next are items from trustees. Okay. The general manager report, Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. We have a couple of presentations. The first one, we're going to do a presentation on the financial plan and capital improvement plan. Vanessa Aguilar and Rachel Pierce are going to be presenting.
Good afternoon, Vice Chairman and Trustees. Vanessa Aguilar, and we're here to give you an update on our financial plan and just to give you a brief recap on one of our core business initiatives, strong financial management. So we ensure that when we're awarding a capital project that we have the funding in place to award capital projects. We also make sure that we have at least 90 days working capital in our cash balances to provide for our operating expenses. Our debt service coverage ratio, we want to maintain that at a minimum of 2 times coverage, and that means that we're able to pay for our debt service 2 times from our net revenues. And our fixed charge coverage ratio at a minimum of 1 times, which means that we're able to pay for our debt service at least 1 times from our fixed charges. We also want to maintain a debt to pay-go balance of 60% debt to 40% pay-go, and that ensures that we don't become over-leveraged over time. And we maintain adequate cash reserves in both water and wastewater utility. And last but not least, that we are striving to maintain our AAA credit. Recently, we were reaffirmed by both S&P and Moody's in our AAA credit ratings this spring. And so as we take a look at our 5-year financial plan for water, we can see our revenues at the top. We're forecasting about $179 million for this fiscal year, FY 2020, increasing to over $232 million in the 5-year period. The main contributors to our revenues are our service charges and our system development charges as well. Our expenses are primarily composed of our city operations that pay for staff salaries, services, and supplies. That was adopted and is in place since July 1st. And our aqua operations and support of McGee Creek at 1.2, and non-rate expenses which are self-funded through non-rate revenues. So our total expenses for this current fiscal year are about $87 million, and we're projecting that to increase to over $96 million in the 5-year period. Jumping down to our debt service, we do see our debt service is going to increase significantly in the 5-year period and especially in the 10-year period as we go through our 5-year capital program, which is driven by the second Atoca pipeline construction. And that can be seen, the water CIP, and towards the bottom of almost $1.05 billion in the 5-year period. Our coverage ratios are at the bottom of your screen. We're striving to maintain 2 times coverage. We do dip in that 5th year on our bond coverage, but it does continue to increase over the 10-year period, and we're above our 1 times coverage in the 5-year period as well. As we take a look at our wastewater financial plan, our revenues are projected at $112 million for the current year, increasing to over to $139 million at the end of the 5-year period. Our expenses, mainly driven by city operations, trust operations, and our contracted services with Infomark, are about $61 million for fiscal year 20, and are forecasted to increase to over $65 million by FY 2024. Our debt service, similar to what we saw on the water side, we are seeing our debt service increase from $17 million in the current fiscal year to over $31 million by the end of the 5-year period. At the bottom of your screen, again, we're tracking those coverage ratios. We're maintaining 2 times coverage for our debt service and 1 times fixed charge coverage. When we take a look at our funding strategy, on the left side of your screen, you can see the breakout of our funding sources. We have PAYGO, SRF funds, and our commercial paper program. And the water is shown in the blue bars, and wastewater is shown in the green bars for the 5-year period. And then on the right hand of the screen, we have our debt to PAYGO ratio that we're tracking. In the 5-year period for water, we're about 68% debt to 32% PAYGO, and water is roughly a 50-50 split. So combined for both water and wastewater, we're looking at a 68 to 32% split of debt to PAYGO funding. And so with that summary, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Rachel for your update on the capital plan.
Good afternoon. So on the water capital plan, I'm going to go with the water side first. Our key projects is the second Atoca pipeline, which we recently awarded the first section, which is the South Canadian River crossing, and we're working on advertising another segment in the next quarter. And then we also have our interconnection of our Hefner Draper pipelines, and we're wrapping up the design on all of the projects now, and we should award the last 5 in early 2020. We're going to be advertising them in December of this year. With our water treatment plant upgrades, we have the Hefner line project is in preliminary design right now, and it's due to award next spring. And then we also have the Hefner ozone project, which we're in the process of procuring the equipment, and then we're going to continue with the advertising and construction. Down at the Draper wastewater treatment plant, or water treatment plant, sorry, we have the super scraper that removes the sludge from the sediment basins, and we're anticipated to award that by the end of December. And then the Draper switchgear replacement is anticipated to be back online, and we're going to be fully functioning with that equipment in early 2020. The Draper Clear Well project construction is progressing smoothly, and we're anticipated to be completed by fall of 2021. The next projects are the main replacements. Those are the small diameter renewal and replacement projects. We're going to be awarding 4 water main projects in the next quarter, which encompasses 8 miles of small diameter water mains. For the booster stations, we're awarding engineering contract for the emergency generators for resiliency. Those are going to be for 9 booster stations. We're also in the process of designing booster pump station 15 with the estimated start construction this fiscal year. And booster pump station 8 is currently in construction now and is estimated to be completed by May of next year. On the asset management side, we're also going to be doing the engineering contract for the watershed and erosion control, and that is for our lakes and sedimentation to protect Lake Hefner and Draper. On your charts, you'll see we have the 2020 to 24 capital improvement plan If you notice on the right-hand side, we have for the fiscal year 2020, we have overall $30 million. The second quarter is when we're going to be awarding another Atoca project, and that's why we have a little over $100 million on that one. So here is a map of how we are spread out throughout the city, so you can see visually where the projects are located. Like I said, the Hefner and Draper were doing the watershed protection, which is why those are hatched. We have the dark black, which is the interconnect for Hefner-Draper interconnect. Most of those projects are done. We have the red leg right here. This segment is what we have left. These are going to be the last 5 projects that will be advertised by the end of this year, and that'll finish off the Hefner-Draper interconnect. We also have a lot of R&R projects going on throughout the city. Like I said, we have 8 miles, and so we're going to be picking up those throughout. The wastewater capital plan, our key projects is we have right now the Chisholm Creek wastewater treatment plant and the Deer Creek wastewater treatment plant. Both of those were recently awarded and construction is moving along. We also have the South Canadian wastewater treatment plant that's still in design. That one we're expanding from 6 million gallons to 9 million gallons a day. And this one is anticipated to award in fiscal year 2021. We're also going out for engineering right now, which we plan on awarding in the next quarter for the odor control and biosolids for our treatment plants and for our Witcher lift station. The asset management program, that one we are about halfway through. We're moving along with the triage approach. We have completed half of the acoustic inspections, which is approximately 126 miles, and we've inspected over 3,000 manholes. We've also had over 30 miles of CCTV done so far, and we are on track to finish up that first area in January, and then we'll be awarding the second area. We're also, for our main replacements, we're finishing up the 72-inch relief line, which is out to bid right now, and we'll open bids tomorrow on that project, and we anticipate to award in the next month. This concludes all of our relief lines for the North Canadian wastewater treatment plant section that goes out west. For the main replacements, we're going to be awarding 2 small diameter main replacements the next quarter. That encompasses 7.5 miles. And then for the lift stations, we've just recently awarded a project that rehabilitates 5 lift stations, and that one we're starting construction on. So as you see, in fiscal year 2020, we're a little over $80 million for that total of $490 million over the next 5 years. And so as you see on the map for visually, this is area 1 for our sewer assessment. And so we're wrapping that one up. We're about halfway through. And then in January, we're going to be awarding for area 2, which is this large red area. We'll also be doing some R&R projects, small diameter sewer lines throughout the city, as well as our lift stations. Over at our treatment plants, like I mentioned, we have construction going on with 2 of them. We're also going to be doing the biosolids and odor control projects. Questions? Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chairman, we have another presentation. Larry Hare is going to give us an update on the Atoca Dam and Spillway Rehabilitation Project.
Good afternoon again. Just give you a brief location of where the Atoca Lake is located. It's about 100 miles southeast of where Draper is located. Some quick facts and figures of the dam. I'll let you look at those. I just want you to notice the original shape of the spillway here on the lake and the dam. As you can see, the new shape of the OG weir is taking shape. It's going to be more of a circular area. It covers more area to allow more water to go over. They're working on this half of the chute right now. I bring this chart up to show that in mid-late July, the water level was down far enough to where we're no longer spilling over the temporary spillway into the stilling basin, so they can do a little more productive work down here in this area. Here's what part of the spillway is starting to take shape. Take a look at. Here on the top of the dam, the parapet wall has been taken away, and they're taking away the road that was on top of the dam as well, and starting to do some regrading up here. Here is a section of wall here on the lake side of the dam, on top of the dam, that is being constructed. Here's another view of it right here. And this will allow us to raise the level of the dirt for the dam about 6.5, 7.5 feet, and not have to go further into the lake on either side whenever we add to the top of it. Here in the Stilling Basin area, they're able to do a lot of work. Here they're getting ready to start work related to what's called the roller compacted concrete flooring an area right here, and they're also making preparations on this for a new valve vault. And this is what it's going to look like when all is said and done. The roller compacted concrete here in this area will be starting on roughly around September 3rd of this year. Construction is estimated to be completed by April of next year.
Thank you, Larry.
You bet.
Mr. Vice Chairman, that's about it. I just did want to give a short update on our water sales. We were averaging about 100 million gallons a day until it got really hot. Now we're up over 150 million gallons a day, so we're selling a lot of water. Fortunately, we got a little bit back today with the rain, so we're selling a lot of water. The western side of our city, the lakes there are all full. Draper is about, it's about 1.5 foot down, but it still looks real full. Water quality there is looking really, really good. We have Atoca down about 5 feet artificially just so we can do the work on the Spillway, and McGee Creek is, we started pulling water out of McGee Creek a few weeks ago, and it's still full. But we're managing the lake balance plan quite well.
So from a history standpoint, the Atoca Lake's a man-made lake.
That's correct.
Did the city of Oklahoma City build the dam that created the lake back in 1958 or something like that?
Yes, sir. And then the same with Draper. They built them both about the same time, and then the pipeline.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So that's all the reports.
That's all I have.
Okay. Any citizens to be heard? Okay, we are adjourned.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.